download. It's our weekly look at things that are going on within digital. The idea here is that we bring everybody, the community, increase all of our digital skills. We all can learn from each other. I'm a great believer in learn, share, and grow. And we're going to do a number of things. First of all, we're going to talk about our content of the week. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to discuss about mistakes. Sure. Should you be allowed to make them? Should you be taking risks in what you do? Then if we have some time, then we'll talk about some of the tips we have for to share with you.
Love it.
Quick introductions. Nick.
Hello guys, yes, I'm Nick, aka That Social Nerd. I live on LinkedIn and I hang out with, I'm part of Eric's family, the Crux family in the larger DLA.
And this is his 14th live today.
Yes, I'm quite lived out today. This is only my second live today. But the
Adam,
first one I was doing as a host. So.
Hi, I'm Adam Gray. I'm co-founder of DLA Ignite and Tim's business partner, and delighted to be here, surrounded by really interesting people.
Will I am.
Yeah, that's my other personality on Restream. So apologies for that. So my name's William Shorten. I'm a consultant and a coach and a part-time poet at certain points, and Eric. I'm also absolutely yeah.
Cheers.
All one
Cheers.
of the crowd.
Oh yes, world domination.
And I also am an associate with DLA Ignite, working with all of these guys, which is a real pleasure.
Rob.
Good morning. I'm Rob Durant, founder of Flywheel Results. I do sales coaching and enablement and some sales recruiting. Also a DLA Ignite associate.
Fantastic. Eric.
Hello, I'm Eric Doyle. I'm the founder of Crux. And we are partnered with DLA Ignite. Yesterday I was asked to sum up what we do in, as a collective, what we do in less than or 6 words or less. And I came up with, we create technical and commercial influencers. You like that?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
You like that? Thought that was pretty good off the cuff to be put on the spot. Thought that was pretty damn good. So yeah, that's happy to be here.
Good, thank you. And last but not least, Brent.
Hi, I am Brittany Hutchinson, the Director of Digital Transformation at Little Bird, and also a partner of DLA.
Welcome.
I chatter a lot on LinkedIn about sales, and yeah, happy to be here. Thanks.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much. So we're gonna look at our piece of content. So Eric's going to go first because he's actually already shared his screen. So anybody who wants to go second will need to get your screen shared. And I'm just going to do that, and it should come up.
Yeah. So Tony,
if I do this, does that make it no?
No.
Well, I like that one.
That's a really nice one. You're doing great. This is brilliant. It's like psychedelics. It's brilliant. Right. So here's my little story. So we're asked every week to pick a piece of content that we loved. So this is about the content, but it's also about the story, right? So Tony Franklin is known as the Fretless Monster. He's a fantastic personality. He's been around the music circuit for more than he would probably care to say. More years. He was the bass player with The Firm. He was the bass player with Blue Murder. He was the bass player with Whitesnake. He's a legend, right? And this legend is very active on LinkedIn, and it's him. He does little tutorials. He does all sorts of things. He does lots and lots of stuff, and he's a very dynamic personality. He'll get up and post his juice that morning that he had for breakfast. He'll do a little bass tutorial, but he'll also put up lots and lots of stuff about, here's me back in the 80s with David Bowie on stage. Here's me with Jimmy Page recording in a jam session. The other day, our Tony put up a lovely post saying, here's a picture of me jamming with Nico McBrain, the drummer from Iron Maiden. Now, in and of itself, that little post is fine. Here's me and Nico jamming to Run to the Hills. Now, that thrilled me. That absolutely thrilled me. There's Tony Franklin, bass player from Whitesnake, jamming with his mate from Iron Maiden. to run to the hills. And they put that on LinkedIn. Now, Tony's a lovely personality, so you get lots of engagement. He's got lots of followers, and his stuff's very non-threatening, very entertaining. So I liked it and put a little comment on it. About half an hour later, I saw that a connection of mine had liked that particular, it fed through to me because I'd liked and commented on it. It said that Jens Peter Hamang has liked and commented on a piece of content that you liked earlier on. Now, Jens happens to be a lovely person. He's the COO at SGN. I know Jens, and I'm considering that my liking and commenting on Tony's piece of content pushed it into Jens's feed, and he saw it and he decided to interact with it. So I went in to see how he'd interacted with it, and it'll come up in a minute. Jens had put a little comment at the bottom. So I like and comment on a piece of a rock star's content. It pushes it into one of my followers' feeds, and one of my followers, or someone that follows me because he saw that, decides to go in and put a little comment on there. Yeah, it was terrible, sad news about Meatloaf today. Terrible, terrible. So Jens, as you can see at the bottom of that little page, and I'll blow it up in a second, commented, "Wow, fantastic. Iron Maiden was my favourite band, and in the 80s and still my favourite band today. Incredible energy, and their latest album shows that they're still able to deliver incredible rock." So there's someone from my network now interacting with a very, very famous rock star. So I just went in to look at this, and then I noticed that Tony Franklin responded and got into a conversation with Jens. So there's the rock star, Tony Franklin, having a chat with Jens Peter Hamang. Yes, all the way, absolutely fantastic. So there's a little connection being made there. And I thought this was beautiful. Now, it's a metaphor. So there it is in its beautiful glory. There's the post, there's Jens's comment, there's Tony's response. We talk about social media shrinking the world. We talk about social media bringing people that you desire to connect with and you desire to just get close to, bringing them right into your study, your office, wherever that might be, right into your laptop screen. Think about this beyond a rock star and someone from a community. Just incredible, the fact that social media now gives all this access. It gives us access. It shrinks the world. It also lifts off titles and badges. You know what I mean? So there's Tony didn't go, well, I'm not gonna interact with a CEO at SGN. It's just people, just interacting with people on subjects that they like. It's a metaphor for life. It's a metaphor for current life. It's a metaphor for what social does in terms of shrinking the world and bringing people together and creating little synapses and moments of magic that would never have existed by any other means. That conversation could never have happened by telephone or by email or from a concert. I really like Iron Maiden, Tony. Tony's not going to stop the concert and go, "Brilliant, Jens. Thank you." It's the only way it could have happened. Yeah, fantastic. So that's my little piece. It's a little metaphoric piece, and it happens to be linked to something I like, which is music and cool people in our networks coming together. Any comments on that?
Oh, it's great. I think it's a great metaphor.
Beautiful.
As ever, we can hear your passion, Eric.
Those things that you have in common kind of pull you in, and you end up starting conversation, and that is the very principle of social selling. It's beautiful to see that in action. Love it.
Now, if this was on another show, we'd play a track now, but we're not going to do that.
It's kind of a live action 6 Degrees from Separation, right in front of our very eyes.
It really is.
Rob, you're up next, aren't you?
I am. So the piece of content that I'm sharing is from a connection of mine. Kirk Miller actually shared an article from The Atlantic. And the base of the article was why making friends in midlife is so hard. And on its face, the article itself spoke to me pretty directly. It was interesting to read about some of the research shared and so on. And the long and the short of it is you make your friends for life, if you will, in your early 20s, in your college years. As you approach your 30s, that list starts to get pruned just by, well, if you will, natural selection. As you get busy with your own life, you connect with others less. for somebody that is going through a dramatic change, or it spoke to me because while my 5 kids are still all at home, they're going off to college more. They're looking at moving away. And that empty nest syndrome that is talked about is starting to become a reality. My wife and I look at each other and say, we need more friends. That is not necessarily something that's easy to pick up at this stage in life. And then the parallel for me was people getting on social platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, or whatever, at a later stage in life and making those connections and that process of facilitating it. It just spoke to me both directly and throughout the day-to-day work that I'm trying to get done. It was an interesting read, and I was grateful that Kirk had shared it, and I took the time to go through it.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I think it's superb. It's made me think a little bit about my own circle of friends. Probably slightly different for me or slightly different for us because of the way that we live our lives on social media and stuff like that. We tend to grow networks, and we're growing networks more than probably average Joe and Joanne. But you're absolutely right. It's I'm experiencing that as well. My son goes off to university this year. And my daughter's already away. She lives in a different city, so it's you're absolutely right. I think it's a cracking piece, certainly, and how digital can help extend those friendship networks. Brilliant.
And the parallels between the younger generations being digitally native and just getting it and getting out there. Is it innate because they grew up with the phone in their hand, or is it innate because of their age, the time in their life when they're making those connections anyway? It was a lot to think about for me.
I'm going to challenge that right now because I've got a 23-year-old and a 17-year-old, and I observe in much detail what they do with social media. It's very insular. It's very closed. It's very closed, super closed. The concept of going out to, like I spoke to my daughter about this the other day, to a 23-year-old and a 17-year-old, the concept of going out and bringing more people into communities is shocking. Shocking. And shut up, Dad, you don't know what you're talking about. It's bracketed, it's closed, it's little closed communities. This is my people, this is my little tribe, and we communicate in our little tribe, and that's it. Well, that's certainly what I see from a reasonably broad set of youngsters, is that it's that whole adage that Adam's spoken about at great length before, how older people are better suited to going into an environment, into a room, and being able to walk up and go, "Hi, Brenty, my name's Eric. What is it?"
It'd be interesting to hear what the audience think if they think that there's, if they've got children and if they've observed children, or what they feel about themselves.
Yeah,
I'd also.
Do you think that's? I was going to
Go
say,
ahead,
I think
Nick.
that's because we kind of crossed that cusp of we grew up with the internet, we grew up with PCs, but we bridged that gap between the traditional and the analog and the digital, basically. So we seem to be a Gen X thing or not. I don't know.
I think
sorry, Brenty, carry on.
You're fine. I almost think that this could start happening earlier and earlier for the younger generations, not just because of what's going on right now, but because everything is so digital. And like Eric was saying, I think their close circle of friends and a close tight-knit of communication, they're in constant communication with a few people at a time. But as those people start to get their own lives and families and move, what's going to happen then? And they don't have the skills to build these communities and to actually be forward and have these conversations. I don't know.
I think there's something about the fact that, so I'm 51, right? When I was in
surely not, Eric.
I'm 51. I know it's hard to believe. I know it's shocking to most. There's people dropping coffee cups, cars crashing all over the world, but mountains collapsing. The whole concept of walking into a room full of strangers with a name tag on at a networking event and walking onto a stand and saying, "Hi, I'm such and such. This is how's life," and doing all of that. We've been doing that for a long time. We've been doing that for a hell of a long time. So I think the idea of being a sociable animal, being a social person that can converse and go, "Hi, what's your name?" Adam. Adam, how'd you get here today? How's things? How's it going? How's your family? What's going on? Instead of, we're not just running up to people and shouting, brochure, brochure, brochure. We're actually making connections and being interested. I think that's something that we've done a lot of, and that the young team haven't done a lot of.
I think there's a few things at play. I mean, I'm 51 as well, Eric. So I've kind of
no one questioned that. Well, no one questioned it.
What you say resonates, but I also think back. I mean, we didn't have digital to have to contend with when we were younger. But I mean, when we were at school, it's not like we suddenly knew everybody in the class, or went around with everybody in the class, or we did have small kind of what they now refer to as friendship groups. Why not just call them friends? But you kind of had circles of people that you kind of dealt with, and if you were in a sports team, or if you were in a music group, or if you were doing theatre, you gravitated to those people that you had something in common with, and you spent time with them, but you didn't necessarily go out of the way to kind of connect with everybody. And sometimes when you were moving to a different group, or there was some reticence because do I fit in? I'm not cool enough to belong to that group, certainly in my case for most of the groups that I belong to. So I'm not quite sure whether there is such a differentiation. I mean, I think social has come in and it's changed the rules, and there are kind of different ways to operate. But I also think that, perhaps things aren't as different as we think, given those different circumstances.
So, Brentley, you've got some content, haven't you?
I do. I'm not sure if I will be able to play. It's actually a 30-second video. I'll click play on it, but
yeah,
I'll share the link case.
Click play.
All about redefining what it means to be professional. We'll see. I'm not sure. If it doesn't work, I will explain.
Thanks, Rob, by the way. Thanks for tuning in.
No pressure, but we're going to stay completely silent until it works, Brent.
I'm not moving.
Well,
I'm not moving.
Fine. That's fine. I'm a slow morning person anyway. I don't think it will play. Unfortunately, I'll share it in a minute. But it goes along with a couple weeks ago, Adam had commented on one of his posts. Client shared, there's a difference between sharing privately or sharing private information, sharing personal information. And 5 years ago, I was that person that was like absolutely no want to like talk about personal life or share personal information with customers or clients, only because I felt that maybe it might put me at a disadvantage. This video or ad really was put out by LinkedIn, and it's just welcoming all different people, and it's saying like, this emoji is professional, your wild hair professional, this like messing up sometimes is professional, and I just think it's so true. Sometimes people just need to hear that they have permission to be themselves. And I think that right now, with everything being digital, some of these clients and leagues you might never meet. And so it's super important to put a little bit of your personality in the things that you do, in the content, in the engagement that you have with your network. And then lastly, say, since I have done that, messages every day of people just saying like, wow, I love your personality sprinkled all over your profile, and it starts conversation. And I don't know, it just blows my mind because I never was that like 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I think it's great.
And conversations create sales.
Outstanding.
Very
Terrific.
True.
So one of the things
it's freeing, it's liberating.
It is liberating. So one of the things that we as a group here talked about what we could do to make the digital download better and more interactive, more exciting. And one of the things that we talked about was how can we take some risks? So one of the things I wanted to talk about was should people in professional people, should we take risks? Should our leadership allow us to take risks? Should we be able to experiment? So what I've decided to do is take a risk and experiment and bring a guest on.
No way.
And so what I want to do is welcome Jennifer Navarrete.
Hey.
Hey, everybody. So excited to be here to join you.
Yeah, fantastic.
So Jennifer, you're
First
a big advocate of taking risks and experimenting and trying stuff.
Yeah, tying into what Brittany said, we all have this professional persona of ourselves, and we want to be this polished person. And if we have a regular live show, we show up on time and we do our regular thing. However, that's your live stream. Something to consider is the behind the scenes aspect of what you're doing, which is called a live stream. And that's where you take your phone and you do some behind the scenes stuff. And folks love that stuff. And that's taking a risk because you think, oh no, I just want to present this polished version of myself. But if you will allow folks the little hidden moments where they feel like they're getting that behind the scenes moment, and they are, that's a risk, but it's a risk that endears people to you and really ties them closer to you. And when it comes to experimentation, I like to experiment in public. I like to tell folks, I'm going to try this new thing. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it's going to be successful. Maybe. And if not, if it isn't, I'd like you to come on the journey with me. And I do a new experiment every single month. And sometimes they're amazing successes, and other times they're fantastic failures. And
can you give us an example, Jennifer, of just off the top of maybe one that's a failure and one that's been a huge success?
Right. So if we look at Twitter Spaces, back in the early days of Twitter Spaces, I wanted to really kind of push the buttons and pull the levers, which is what I love to do with experiments anyway. And I thought, I'm going to go live every single day with this, and I'm going to at 5 o'clock, Central Time, and I'm going to give that a try. And it was not a success. I sometimes sat for an hour by myself. Sometimes I had people who were, coming in to just cause a ruckus, and sometimes it worked out okay. And so I cut that experiment short because I was like, it's too soon in the world of social audio, and specifically on Twitter Spaces, because Clubhouse was going really well at the time. And so I cut that short. However, I decided to tweak it and modify that. And in April, I launched a 30-day challenge called the Walk Talk Challenge, where I would interview women entrepreneurs using social audio. So it was either Twitter Spaces or Clubhouse, because at the time, Clubhouse was iOS only and not Android. And the first person I interviewed doing a walk talk challenge, meaning I was walking around my neighborhood, she was walking around a park near her home in, I think it was Croatia. I can't remember where she was. I want to say, or maybe it was Germany, because she travels a lot. And I could hear the birds where I was at in San Antonio, Texas, and I could hear the birds where she was at walking around the park. And it really shrunk the world in an amazing way. And I would call that a success, because my question to myself was, can I use this social audio platform and encourage movement in women entrepreneurs and capture that and turn it into a podcast? And the answer was yes. Yes, I could.
Because you tried and because you found out you could. Yeah, absolutely. Because you took that step and you tested it.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
And Jennifer, so you're a great believer in learn, share, grow, aren't you? Where you do some stuff, you may fail, and you share it, or you do some stuff, you succeed, and then you share it, and then everybody grows.
Yeah, I like the building in public aspect to this. It really does liberate you and give you a lot of freedom, because it's not you who failed if it didn't work out. It's the experiment who failed. It's called an experiment because we don't know the outcome. If we knew the outcome, it'd be called a for sure. And we would know what's going to happen, and there wouldn't be this need to kind of, test things out. And I think by doing that, what it does is it allows folks to also have that permission to experiment themselves. And that's what I want to encourage us all to do. I think a lot of times we think, I'm a professional in this space, and surely I've got to have it all down on lock. And if someone sees that I'm, fumbling around, they're going to think less of me. But the reality is the tools and the tech is moving at a rapid pace. How can we keep up? It's really difficult, even if we've been in our field for 10, 20, X plus years. It's shifting and evolving all the time. So we have to be open to experimentation. Whether we do that in public or not is entirely up to our own comfort level. But I feel like when we experiment in public, not only are we participating in the learn, share, grow within ourselves, but we also invite others to participate in that as well. And I can tell you that I have learned as much from the folks who join me on my various journeys in any given month as I share with them. And it's just really a great way to develop and build community.
Jennifer, you just gave me great permission to fail.
Fail fast, get good.
It's not you that fails. It's the experiment that fails. That sense of impending failure will hold me back at times. I appreciate that statement for that value alone. Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
I'm inspired by what I've just heard, and I've got a mental block about something. As much as I share things about me, I've got a mental block, and I'm taking a risk right now. The first time I've ever really done it. What am I doing right now?
You're
showing your tattoo.
And I'm dying inside because I never show my tattoos ever. And Jennifer's made me think: is the world going to spin off its axis? Am I going to lose followers? Are people
I'm
going to write
questioning
letters of
everything you've
complaint?
ever taught me.
Yeah. So right now, I never ever show my tattoos ever, and I always wear a shirt, and I always wear it. So I've decided to take my t-shirt off and just have my little tattoo, just as a little
Take
teaser.
your t-shirt off.
Take it off. Take it off. Take it off.
Well, Eric, in that case.
Wait a minute. I didn't know it was going to be that kind of a show.
I didn't know either, Jennifer.
Anyone here that stands?
Whoa, R2D2.
Stavros.
The maverick of the kind would have never expected and created this guy.
Oh, Captain. Yeah, Nick, we've completely lost your audio. It's just like I don't know what it's called.
Davros.
We've lost your audio, Nick. Nope.
Yeah. I don't
Yes. Maybe he's trying.
So I've taken the risk. I'm now going to go back to my safety zone. It felt good though. It felt good.
I think your example, Eric, showed a really key part that sticks out for me, Jennifer, which is the kind of the mindset, and it's kind of making that transfer across from yes, I'm safe and I'm comfortable to actually, as Eric himself said, what's actually going to be the cost of this, and reframing it and seeing it a different way.
I think the other thing is that what Eric did was what Brentley was talking about, which is being yourself and being authentic. The tattoo is part of who you are. Nobody loves you any less because you've got a tattoo, because even when I didn't know you had a tattoo, you were still the same person. And I think that being authentic and being yourself is really important. But the mistake thing is something else, isn't it? So the making the mistake is I mean, Sir Ken Robinson talked about this in his TED talk, where he said the problem that we have in business at the moment is that making mistakes is stigmatized. The worst thing you can ever do is make a mistake. And actually making mistakes is the only way that you can break new ground and do something which is creative. Because he said, I'm not saying that making mistakes and being creative are the same thing, but what I can say is that if you are not prepared to be wrong, you will never do anything creative. And I think that it's really important that we create a culture, both, on platforms and in our own businesses, where it's okay to try something, to fail, to pick yourself up and have another go and do it differently, as long as you learn from that experience.
I guess where I'm interested is as well, Jennifer, just sorry to follow up on that, is there's lots of organizations that talk about, oh yes, no, we want to fail, and the talk and the behavior are two different things. Because actually how everybody is measured is in terms of success and what they're able to generate, and so you kind of get this dissonance between the behavior and then what people are saying. So I don't know what your experience tells us around that.
Sorry, made a mistake.
Get out.
How's my audio?
I'm leaving.
Oh, excellent.
Oh, it's amazing.
Better? Much better?
Clear.
Your
Yeah.
audio is brilliant.
Fantastic.
Yeah, there is a limit, right, how far you can go with that. In my professional work, when I'm working with clients, I mean, it's a different aspect to it. So this is me, Jennifer, experimenting, right? And I'm doing experiments all the time, and folks know this about me. But the way that I position this is that how am I going to learn unless I'm pushing the buttons and pulling the levers? Clients come to me because they expect me to have pushed the buttons and pulled the levers way before I approach them on anything. And right now, some of the things I'm pushing the buttons and pressing the levers on, I mean, well, vice versa, pushing the buttons and pulling the levers on, is actually creating content on the blockchain. I'm not advising my clients to do this yet, but me, Jennifer, experiment person, I'm experimenting to the extreme on it because I've got to know what it is, what it can do, how it can operate. And I'm doing this in a very public way. And my clients know what I'm doing, but I'm not telling them to go do this yet. Eventually there will be a space for that and a time for that, but it's not now. And the two versions of myself are very distinct in that way, where I'm not necessarily experimenting with clients unless they're a client that likes to experiment. But typically I'm really cautious with how I approach this with clients. It isn't until after I've done all those things that I'll go, okay, here's the body of work that I did in this. Here's where I think it, can apply to you. And if you're willing to go in that direction, we can.
I think there was a really interesting podcast that went out yesterday, wasn't there, about content on the blockchain, wasn't there, Jennifer? Oh yeah, there was. Yeah,
was that a Tim Talk by any chance?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. If you're interested, come to my LinkedIn profile. 20-minute interview with Jennifer about content on the blockchain. It will blow your mind.
Right.
It is one of those. Every now and again, I push the boundaries or find someone with some really interesting stuff. It is fantastic, and I recommend it. I know I'm biased, but.
It's a pleasure to know you. I think you're inspiring us. I've got just to tail off I've got a funny story if you want to hear. Tim likes my sort of Billy Connolly story.
Yeah.
Well, you want that just now?
The one about your tattoo?
It's the one about my tattoo on my back.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was 19 years old, I got my first tattoo, and it was a Harley Davidson motorcycles tattoo done in a really, really low rent tattoo parlor in Paisley. Now, one of the things you should not go low rent on in your life is tattoos. You don't go for discounted tattoos. Yeah. so
I'll show you mine if you want. It's terrible.
Alex and Paisley, and got my very first, and it's ridiculous because it's a tramp stamp. It's on my lower back, right? And it says it was a Harley Davidson motorcycles. So I got it when I was 19. I've expanded a little and shrunk a little and expanded more, right? So it's kind of like, it was bad to start with, but now it's completely mangled and twisted. And I'm the only person in the world that has a Humphrey Donaldson motorcycles tattoo.
Fantastic. So, any more discussion about experimentation or taking risks?
Yeah, I actually there's been a lot of chatter on my LinkedIn feed this week just about creating content and how salespeople and they're really craving to be better writers and to be trained on how and what to say and when to say it. What I think is really interesting is there's some people who are doing really well right now, and they talk about all the time they spent in private growing and thinking through their thoughts. And then I think there's another side to that, which is people like me. And I kind of like to feed two birds with one scone and do it publicly. So I'm kind of writing out these thoughts, and as time goes on, I can see it like getting clearer. But to me, that just makes more sense for what I do, to put it out there and get better, but also help other people.
Yeah,
the other half of the people
breadcrumbing
are completely opposite.
Right. And what we're doing when we're experimenting is we're taking people on the journey with us. There's something to that. If we think about the content that we create, if we think about our lives, it's kind of like a book. It starts with once upon a time and it ends with either the end or to be continued. And what's in the middle, right? You're going to have tragedies, you're going to have comedies, you're going to have highs, you're going to have lows, you're going to have boring, quiet moments. And if you take people on your content creation in that way, then they have a vested interest when you get there, right? Once I succeeded, once I had fumbled around with the not so great way of doing Twitter Spaces and then decided to really focus in on something, I took people on that journey of like, hey, this didn't really work out for me, but I'm thinking of doing this. So as people follow along as I'm going, they have a vested interest in what I'm doing because they've watched me go through that process. Again, that's something I do for myself very, very liberally. It's not necessarily something I recommend clients do as liberally. There is a way to do it with clients. It's more measured, more thought out of taking folks on that journey.
Yeah, I think it's hard to, even though it's right for you and that's like your journey, it's hard to encourage other people to do that. Like it has to be right for you, but there's plenty of other ways to experiment, even if it's not publicly.
And you can experiment internally within your organization too. It doesn't have to always be public.
So what does the audience think, and what do people think about getting guests on like Jennifer?
Oh, outstanding.
Fantastic.
Come on. Fabulous.
Okay.
Jennifer's got far more interesting things to say than we ever will.
Jennifer, thank you so much for taking out 15 minutes of your day and coming.
Oh,
and joining us.
brilliant.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a good one. Thank you.
Outstanding.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks.
And may I just point out that there was a little bit of grammar there, which just changed my view. So in Scotland, we take a very negative view on two birds. We say killing two birds with one stone. Brentney said, I don't know if anyone noticed that, feeding two birds with one scone.
Beautiful. Absolutely.
I cannot
beautiful.
take credit.
I've never heard that in my life.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Feeding two birds with one scone is fabulous.
Yeah.
I can't
positive
take credit.
spin.
That is a something I learned at Little Bird. I don't know if they came up with it, but
I
makes
love it.
sense, right? That I would learn it there.
How good was Jennifer?
She was
Brilliant.
great.
Yeah, she's great.
So, Darth Vader, you're up next with this piece of
Yeah,
content.
do I sound okay now? Am I good? Yes, this one is from a client of mine, Mr. Andrew Ferrier. It's the second article he's produced, and I read this the other day, and it happens a lot anyway. I'm a bit of a weepy person, but I almost cried reading this.
I did as well, actually,
It was beautiful to see. It's
because
it's
I
someone
know the journey. Yes.
Yeah. You've been there. It's it was beautiful to read. Someone whose entire worldview and organisation has changed as a result of embracing social and embracing digital. And there's a line in there where he mentions about kind of taking the team and kind of removing the suits and being more human, that just really kind of resonated with me. It's a large component of what I do with my content. Is I'm very, I've said this to you guys before, I didn't come from a kind of corporate background. I'm more of I've been a creative for most of my life, so I'm used to being human. So I'm kind of plugging in, I'm coming at it from, and I've said this to Eric's before, Eric's kind of come into this from the corporate side, and he's learning how to be more human inside the digital realm. I've always been more human, and I'm learning how to be more corporate, which is strange. But to read this and to see someone whose entire career and worldview is just been reinvigorated through social was beautiful to read. It's a really lovely article.
It's a business leader, what late 40s, early 50s, who's stopped and gone, oh, whoa, I'm questioning everything now and refitting together, breaking apart the puzzle and refitting it back together in a different shape. And this particular man, Andrew, will never be the same.
Yeah.
Never.
So did he get a marketing agency to write this article?
No, he certainly didn't. He wrote it all off.
He wrote it himself.
Back.
Wow.
Yep. And that's the. I think, and I don't say this lightly, I don't think we're just in the business of transforming companies. We're in the business of transforming people's lives as well.
Mm-hmm.
It will forever be changed as a result of this, and that is my why. That is why I get out of bed in the morning to do that kind of stuff.
But it's really interesting, right? So there's the managing director of a company that makes display technology, that makes fancy screens and power supplies and all of that. This article's not about that. This article's about sales and about his view on modern sales and the struggles with it and challenges and all that. Nowhere in here does he say, does anyone want to buy a big display screen? So we know that Edelman and LinkedIn are telling us that the buyers, 64% of buyers view your thought leadership content as a more trustworthy basis for grading you as a company, of whether you can address problems and much better. We don't want to see that. We don't want to see product sheets and brochures. We want to see your thought leadership content. There's a thought leader right there.
Boom.
My God.
Yeah. Mic drop. Whoop.
Amazing.
So that's Andrew Ferrier. And he works for Display Technology.
Display Technology, yep. Yeah, he's the MD of Display Technology.
A modern leader right there.
And that's his second article. I said to him the other day, imagine what it's like when you get to your 50th or 100th article. It's like, that's just, it's just beautiful. Beautiful to see.
Yeah.
And it makes
me
proud and happy.
Thinking of it from like Andrew's perspective, your comment, this is before I knew you were so moved by it, but I saw your comment. I think it said like, this is this is literally the best article I've ever read or something. And just by putting yourself out there and sharing your experience and how much it changed you, could you imagine like seeing that notification and just being like, what? Not a content writer, I'm this, and somebody's going to tell you this is the best article they've ever read. Super motivating, and just it's awesome
because it comes from here. It comes from there. That's yeah.
What's the worst thing that we can hear is someone saying, "Yeah, we've hired a bunch of content writers." You just go, "Oh."
So I'm going to tell a story, and I'm going to tell it because I can't name names,
right?
Even though we are talking about Andrew at the moment, but I'm aware of a company that tried to get into a particular prospects, like we all do. So they did all the, they phoned them and they emailed them, and they got somebody else to do it because it might be my tone of voice, and we'll get Adam to do it. And they phoned them, and they didn't get through at all. So what this company tried to do is that they actually wrote an article, and they created a piece of content. Within 24 hours, the CEO of that company they were trying to get into is having a call with them. What type of witchcraft is that?
What type of witchcraft
Black
is that?
magic.
But
obviously, I can't name the person and the company, but that happened recently within our client base.
Yeah, totally.
So, any other comments about Andrew's article?
No, I think it's terrific.
I thought it was good.
It's lovely. It's lovely when people start to explore this way of expressing themselves and expressing who they are. So this is a company that we're working with. Jonathan is one of our contacts within the company, and he's written some great content, and he published this yesterday. And the thing that I like about this is that it has no apparent business benefit. He's not expressing his expertise or talking about his product, like Andrew wasn't talking about his product. He's not even talking about business. He's just talking about life. And I think that one of the interesting things about this is that he's found something which has moved him, and he's put that out there and said to other people, this unlocked a new way of thinking for me, or this was something interesting that I found, or this is something which pulls together a complex concept, religion and belief systems, with something that we can all relate to, Winnie the Pooh, and kind of marries the two together in an interesting and fun way. And I think that this kind of post is important for a number of reasons. It opens up who you are to people. It opens up people's thinking to fresh ways of doing things, and it shows that there's an opportunity to contrast a valuable message with a fun way of delivering it. So I actually put a comment on this about this book, Mr. Ben's Little Book of Life. Now, anyone outside of the UK may not be familiar with Mr. Ben. It was a childhood cartoon for when all of us were. Yeah, and it's an absolutely wonderful book. And actually, sometimes I do refer back to this, where it just talks about the mistakes and the conclusions that we jump to. So one of the things in that is that there's somebody that's a thief living in the town, and something goes missing from your house. Don't assume it's necessarily the thief that's taken it. And lots of messages like that, which are quite simple, but mistakes and wormholes that we all go down. And I just love this juxtaposition of a friendly character with a big important concept. So that was my post for the week, and I found that resonated with me.
That's lovely.
Lovely.
Very nice. Very nice.
Have you got a link to? Is that book still in circulation? And it was a recent book, the Mr. Ben one.
This one, I have no idea.
What's it called?
It's called Mr. Ben's Little Book of Life by Tess Reed. And the subtext is, as if by magic.
I thought you were going to start reading from it for a second.
Available on Amazon on paperback for £3.58. You can get it tomorrow.
Marvelous.
I think you were doing the tune from Bod rather than Mr.
Yeah, I think it was actually.
Sound a bit like Bod.
But it obviously takes someone to work out, Will,
Yeah. So this is going on a very different vein because we've had. There we go. Who am I going to change into today? I'm going to change into Mr. HR man because that's kind of part of my background. So thank you for that. That's a really nice way to come into this.
I want an intro song.
I know that newsletters are not everybody's favorite cup of tea on LinkedIn, but I think they do have
particularly
a part to play.
Adams.
Yeah, particularly Adams. That's who I was thinking about. Thanks for saying, Nick. But this one's written by a guy who I met when I was living out in France. He works for Total, and he writes a lot on kind of HR issues. Alan Lambert. And this one, he was writing all about the kind of salary review. And for those of us, I really like your kind of continuum there, Nick, about the human and the corporate. So this is kind of very much on the kind of corporate side. So, we would all, in a lot of corporates, you get to this time of year, and of course, you've got the annual review, which is looking at people's performance and then kind of looking at salaries and bonuses and things like that. So, Alan's part is all around that kind of compensation and benefits. And he's a very thoughtful writer. And he came up with this kind of article, which is where he goes through when you're, handing over the envelope. What's your reaction in terms of the person that you've got sitting in front of you, especially when they open it? And in a lot of cases, they're kind of disappointed that they didn't get what they thought they would receive. And, as you read through the article, he kind of gives around about 6 or 7 different settings or reactions that, I'm sure some of us have used when we've been working in the corporate about, it wasn't me to decide, it was my boss. I've got no idea about how the amount was calculated. I'm just the guy who hands out the envelopes, all of these kind of things. So it for me, it kind of got me to reflect on the time I worked in corporate and how, those annual salary reviews are dealt with. And it also links into kind of conversations I've been having a little bit with Eric, who was talking about WebMart, an organization that he works with, who are, when we talk about the kind of corporate and the human, they're well towards the human. And some of these other stories I start to read these days about organizations that are doing things in different ways in terms of how remuneration is arranged. In some cases, they actually leave it to kind of management teams or people within a team to work out how that will be distributed amongst the group. So, this is reflection. The article itself is reflecting what kind of exists, but at the same time, there are all these discussions about what could exist or, what the future looks like. So that's what was interesting for me.
It's quite painful to read that. If you've had any tinge of corporateness in your life, to read through these examples, it's like Groundhog Day, and you can actually hear those phrases being read out in meetings. Particularly the one where he says it might feel tempting to tell all the employees that they're lucky in comparison to some of the others because you got a better deal. And we've all heard all that stuff before. Don't blame me, mate. I just hand the envelopes out.
It's all where you are on the 3x3 matrix, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And unfortunately, you're in the 1x1.
I wrote back in the comment that occasionally I've thought it but haven't said it. You're lucky to be getting that much.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you absolutely slayed it and you beat all your numbers, but unfortunately, the company's had a crap year.
But there is that funny joke, isn't there, about the guy who goes to see his manager, and he says to his manager, I know that the company hasn't been going particularly well. I know that there isn't much money, and I know that there's not going to be any pay rises across the board. And I acknowledge that, but can you just reduce everybody else's pay, please?
Yeah. Well, what's this is a horrible question to ask someone of your tenure in HR, but what Caliber, yeah, absolutely. What is the modern thinking from the cutting edge HR professionals of the world around appraisal processes? What's the modern kind of tone and timbre of all of it? Because there have been, and for many years, appalling practices in the appraisal kind of world. But what's the modern thinking about appraisals?
I'll use a very specific example, which is the former company that I used to work for, and the annual appraisal process was a big thing. And I think, like a lot of corporates, you had about 6 or 7 pages where you would go through stuff from everything about how somebody performed during the year to what their future aspirations were, and then kind of setting the targets for the coming year. And as I kind of gravitated through that kind of system, you know, I thought that kind of form was far too kind of clunky. And in fact, you know, if you take it into a more general conversation about feedback, I mean, everybody these days says that feedback's really important. So, you know, an annual appraisal shouldn't be there as your one opportunity in a year to give feedback to how somebody's performing. You know, that should be done on a much more regular basis, whether that's kind of weekly, bi-weekly, every month. That should be done on a,
And is that a
really
360 will or?
360s tend to be more of a kind of one hit as a development tool. And you would usually do that. You wouldn't do those kind of every year, perhaps every 2 years, because that's giving you a longer projection about how somebody develops. But, you know, I think it's trying to get this balance in recognizing, you know, what's the kind of short-term feedback that you can give somebody, which is going to be helpful for them in terms of how they're performing. And then taking into account, yeah, you do have to have this mid to long-term view about, you know, where they're wanting to go, how their careers developed, and, you know, what the future could look like for them. But you read, I was on a webinar a couple of weeks ago with Reid Hoffman, you know, the guy who set up LinkedIn, you know, and he was talking about LinkedIn. You know, they really started by saying, you know, to somebody in terms of their future career, you know, where is it that you want to go in LinkedIn, or where else do you want to go outside of LinkedIn? So it becomes kind of much more of a conversation around those terms. So, as with me, Eric, sorry, not a concise
no, that's fine,
but kind of there's kind of several different areas there. But I agree, you know, I think they're quite clunky. I think, you know, I know of organizations that are using apps now to do kind of feedback on almost a daily basis. I think some of the big consultancy firms also have a weekly feedback that they get everybody to fill in about, which gives them a kind of instant temperature of how the organization is running. So, you know, there's a lot of different things out there that people are trying.
But I guess one takeaway should be that maybe there should be no surprises on appraisal day. It should be more of a, you know, yeah. If you find out that you've been annoying your boss for a year on appraisal day and that you're crap, there's a problem in the process.
There's a problem,
yeah. which is two-way.
Yes.
Fantastic. So any as we've got the last 5 or 6 minutes, any tips for the audience at all that you've come across this week you want to share? Apart from Eric trying to get in with Whitesnake bass players.
I did a live the other day with a Power Hour podcast, I think it was, and one of the things I talked about in there, and we're talking about making mistakes, I think is fear, is tackling stuff head on and trying something new and getting over that fear hump. Even when that comes to kind of staying in your content lane. So, you know, some people might be really comfortable with writing, for example. They might be really good at prose, and that's the thing that they kind of lean on. That's their crutch because they're good at it. But force yourself to do a podcast, or force yourself to do a video, or force yourself to do a live, because it may be. What was that?
That's Will saying he's got to go.
Oh right, sorry.
Well, he's like that. He's waking up.
So yeah, kind of push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit and try new things, because you'll be surprised what happens on the other side of it. And there is no one on this call that understands that more than me.
Well, you've had some great feedback this week, haven't you?
Yeah. It's been. I mean, I'm kind of coming towards the end of clients training at the moment, but yes, I've had a really terrific week actually with them, just with client stuff and the lives they've been doing, and just this week has been great. So it's been a nice opportunity actually to hang out with you guys on a Friday.
So let me share some of the feedback that Nick's had this week.
Ooh.
This is what a CEO wrote as a recommendation on Nick's LinkedIn profile. As a business, we recognized we needed to fully adopt a digital marketing philosophy, but no idea where to start or how to implement. We invested social media consultancies. Nick has led us through a social selling transformation of our business, starting with a social media strategy to determine what it is we wanted. The clear structure of the training made it manageable to implement while carrying on running the day-to-day operations. Nick's approach and tools, it is just fantastic.
You know
That's
that scene in
incredible.
Jerry Maguire at the end where Cuba Gooding Jr. is they're doing an interview and he's like, I ain't gonna cry. I ain't gonna cry. That's how I feel right now.
Not the one where he's standing. Not the one where he's standing naked, air drying. No. No. Okay.
Not that one.
No.
Yeah, that's that kind of stuff is just. It's like I said. It's why I get out of bed in the morning. It's my why. We are in the business of changing people's not just their careers and their businesses, but their lives as well. And that probably sounds cliche and cheesy, but that's what we do, and it's beautiful to be able to do that. I love it.
Thanks, Nick. Any other tips from people that they've seen this week?
Just more of an overriding theme than a tip. Sorry, Adam. Do you want to tip it up?
Is yours something to draw it to a close with, do you think?
No. Well, it could be, or maybe is yours a better closer?
No, not really. It seldom is. I was just going to say, be brave. You know, we've heard this about being authentic and everything, and I think that the time that you expose your frailty to your audience is the most terrifying thing. Like with your tattoo, Eric. You know, you put something out there, and it's really uncomfortable. And what happens, and I've never seen anything other than this happen on LinkedIn, is that you put it out there and your audience are always supportive of you because it's you that they love and they embrace that and they are supportive and they try to make you feel better about that mistake or that frailty or that difficult situation or that problem that you're facing. And it demonstrates, I think, that you're not alone. You're not the only person with that problem or phobia or fear or issue, but also that people out there genuinely want to help and be supportive. And I think that the only way that you experience that is by taking the leap of faith.
I always use the analogy that LinkedIn in particular, compared to other social media platforms, and I'll go back to Eric's rock analogy, is a bit like stage diving at a concert. Most other social media platforms, you go running off the stage and you jump and they kind of move out of the way and you just go splat. But LinkedIn, they grab you. Everyone grabs you, and you just go surfing off into the crowd. It's a beautiful feeling when you take that leap. It's lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just said this morning to someone, like there is no better place than LinkedIn right now for inspiration and for support and community. So like if there's anything that you want to experiment or ask or like, that's where it's at in the last like 3 years. It's just been a major glow up. LinkedIn has had a glow up.
A glow up.
Go on, Eric.
I think it was just an overriding theme that's become clearer and more bright in the last few months is the whole deal about influence over flooding the market with crap. So we're getting a lot of success and a lot of results with people who are now, instead of thinking about visibility, we're doing this for visibility. We chuck stuff out for visibility. Stopping for a minute, taking a pause and reconstructing the whole thing to start to think about how do we create influence in our markets and sectors? How do we do that? And you don't do that by chucking brochures and crap at people. You have to earn it. You have to earn the right to influence people. You have to cheesy things that we're going to talk about is creating trust within networks and all of that. But the fact is, if we're going to do this, and it's a beautiful thing when people actually stop and just take a look. If you're a leader out there, this is a tip. Sit down this weekend with a cup of coffee, the family are away and you're in the study or whatever it is, open up your laptop, open up your computer and cycle through the feeds of the people who should be the most visible to your outside markets. The people that you think should be the people that maybe salespeople or BD people or whatever, technical people, whatever it might be, and have a look at their news feeds. Are you proud of that? Are you proud of that? Is that something that's really grabbing you and going, oh, that's my company, that's our vision, that's our goal, that's what we want to be known for? or is it a series of just here's a thing, here's a metal thing, you know, or a series of people standing at a show with masks on saying, "Great to be at a show." It's great to be at a show. Or are you actually appealing to the problems and the issues that your network and your sectors and potentially your buyers have? Are you actually doing that? Are you striking right to the heart of that, or are you just throwing crap at the wall and hoping that it sticks? Influence.
You gave me a really great idea for a video, Eric, of someone rocking up to a trade stand. There's some sales guys there, and they're just going brochure.
Like mine.
Yeah.
Mine.
The guys to them, like, what? What's going on?
Brochure. Yeah, brochure.
And for those for whom influence is probably too big a word, how about just connection?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're on the hour.
Is that an hour?
Yeah, that was an hour. Yeah.
What a lovely show.
Time goes
So fun.
fast when you're having fun.
What a lovely show.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the audience for jumping in and
Yeah, brilliant.
And thanks for you lot.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
And next week
Cheers,
will be a
guys.
different guest editor, maybe.
Nice.
Shocking. Brittany.
Eric.
I think we're
Eric.
getting into the groove and the flow.
Yeah.
Now. I can feel it's kind of loosening up. It's good. I'm liking it.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Alistair. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Cheers,
Thanks.
everybody.